Hi, my name is Tim Walden, and I am a portrait photographer and I am a print artist by trade. Many years ago, I asked myself, because my passion has always been photography, but especially portrait photography. And I asked myself, can a portrait be fine art? I believe it can. We built our reputation on that. Doing the things that make art stable, that make it beautiful, that bring out the full potential of every single piece. And I believe portraiture, like any other art form, can and should be treated as fine art. I believe all artists have three things. They have vision, they have originality, and they build that and support that on technical excellence. So for me, it's art when I have that vision and that originality that permeates and tells the story of each subject, but it's the technical excellence that takes that art and makes it fine art. Things like printing on substrates that are archivally sound, presenting it in museum style presentations where you're using acid-free and conservation presentations so that people can enjoy their portrait from generation to generation. Doing the things that make it fine art, marrying it with vision and originality. It's what we've done for decades, and it's why our portraiture, in our mind, and to those that commission us to do their pieces, is absolutely fine art. So if you're going to make a portrait fine art, what are some of the standards that we need to hold? I can only speak for myself and the years that my wife and I, Beverly, have worked hard on the standards that make a Walden portrait. And I think if I were to just go through them, the first thing that comes to my mind is lighting. Lighting that is dynamic. Lighting that brings out the textures, that brings out the different shapes, dimensions, and drama that exist in every single subject. I believe one of the biggest problems today with so many in the industry is not putting emphasis on the lighting. And you know, lighting can expand the tonal range that great papers like Canson have the ability to hold. If you shoot a very flat, compressed light, soft light source, very weak or non-existent shadows, you have a very compressed tonal range. One of the attributes of a great Walden portrait is that I want full tonal range. I want to establish a black so that if we have deep dark tones, I want that black to be black. And then I want the shadows to be just saturated with detail, all the way up into the midtones, the diffused highlights, and then into specular highlights. You see, what happens is, as you expand that tonal range, you get that visual dynamic, that drama that only lighting can provide you. I believe that one of the saddest things today is people that have that great skill of connecting and telling people stories, but the lighting suffers. And when that suffers, you suffer that full potential. So for me, the first point I want to make is I want to make sure that a Walden portrait has beautiful lighting, full tonal range, and then I choose the substrate. So I choose Canson, a platine fiber rag as my paper, because I know that I'm going to get that full tonal range in that piece that I've worked so hard to get in the lighting. All right, we know how important the lighting is. Now, ultimately, as a portrait photographer, you're a storyteller. I mean, there's a lot of people that can record faces, but I want depth. I want that person's story in their eyes and in their body language. So for me, the second part of what makes a beautiful portrait is engaging the mind of the subject, looking at that portrait and seeing who that person is, seeing it in their eyes or seeing it in their body language. It could be very stiff and straightforward because that's the personality or that's the message. Or it could be very soft and intimate. Whatever it is, I believe that my greatest skill is, number one, learning people's stories and then translating that through things like body language. Posing is so important, but a lot of times we get too rigid with that. We learn it and we try to make people fit that. We need to be image makers that bring out the personality and the depth of the people that are in front of us. And so that's important. And for me, to make it also fine art, to make it something that's investment worthy, it has to be built on the back of absolute simplicity. I'm not looking for stuff, a lot of props and things to look at. I want to look at the people. And I think that as time goes by for a great portrait, that someone is going to put on their wall, and you go through all of those steps of making it extra special in the way you print it, and the way you present it and frame it and mat it, do all of those details. It's important to me that it be investment worthy, and part of that is truly simplicity. If you do the lighting right, if you pull out the very essence of a person, if you work hard at telling their stories, you don't need all those things. You have that right in front of you. So I believe fine art, at least for us, represents those people in a fashion maybe other image makers haven't. And that's one of the things that I look for to make a Walden portrait. Now, why would you do all of that work and not be very careful that you choose the right paper to represent that, to bring all of that forward? That's the culmination, that's the climax. I want a paper that is truly fine art in every way. That's why the platine fiber rag from Canson is the paper that I use. It's got rich, deep blacks for those real low ends when I'm doing that beautiful low-key type of portraiture. It has beautiful whites. It's a very, the paper surface is beautiful, and it's archivally sound. It's something that I can put my name on and be very proud, and it represents all of that energy in such a visual dynamic that nothing else does. That's why I'm a Canson fan.